But I would say that in general, I think maybe where we disagree is I look at this Republican team. What has it actually done for us? Because you seem to be defending like, well, we're supposed to vote Republican and we're supposed to say, well, this is better than the alternative.
No.
And he's making these wins. Well, hang on. And I look at it and say, it's been 10 years of Trumpism. And, you know, I know Biden brought them in, but we're 10 million illegals up since Biden, and there's no mass deportations. I look at the wars. We're getting into more wars, not fewer. He wanted to keep us in Afghanistan and Bagram. He's building bases in Syria. We're getting into Venezuela. You know, I look at what we have not done in 10 years, and I say, you know, this is a prescription where it hasn't been working. And so I'm very against this line where you say, well, we're going to vote Republican and we're going to, what exactly? I mean, what's your prescription? If Trump is failing us miserably, what are we supposed to do here?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is I don't agree that our representatives are all failing us miserably. I think they failed in quite a few ways. If you're talking about like the Johnsons of the world and the Rhinos, absolutely. But the things that you just listed, and I would, again, ask you for your prescription. You mentioned law and order. I don't know of any president who sent the National Guard in as aggressively when we're talking about D.C. and Chicago. That way you talk about law and order.
There's no National Guard in Chicago.
Well, I'm saying any effort being made. So let me ask you, what's your prescription? Why hopscotch all the people who I think watching right now would agree with you if they think that you're on board with them on LGBTQ, on immigration, on Second Amendment rights, on First Amendment rights?
I would say that it's a structural problem, which is that the reason, first of all, I mean, we have to deal with the fact that Trump is not delivering. Like, if you don't want to gish gallop, let's just start there. You say, well, I don't think it's a complete failure. Yeah, it is. And you bring up BLM. BLM happened in 2020 because Trump let it happen, because Sean Hannity was calling him every day and saying, this is better for us in November if BLM burns down the cities. So the summer of love happened in 2020 when Trump was president. And then Trump comes back.
No, it started under Barack Obama with going back to Trayvon Martin.
The George Floyd summer of love.
Yeah, it was a continuation.
Is this serious?
Well, I think they kind of picked up on it. Don't you think? It wasn't it was ongoing.
I was there, and I had people on my show back then with hands up, don't shoot. And I remember
I understand what Steven is saying. A lot of this racial stuff really reignited under Obama, but that's not really the point here, Buster. The BLM riots in 2020, at least for a lot of people around my age who are like in their mid-20s, we recognize that period to be some of the darkest times within our personal experiences. Having these mass crowds go into towns and loot places, burn them up, was completely vile and disgusting to see. So Nick is right about this point. That did happen under Trump, and the reality of Trump not doing too much to stop that from happening and just letting a lot of these places burn into a crisp or get eviscerated by these mass crowds, I thought it was a horrible look on his part.
Of the Dallas PD, Donald Trump was elected, specifically his first term, because of how disruptive Black Lives Matter was and law and order. And I would say there was significantly more than under Barack Obama. But if you say they're the same, that's just where we disagree.
Well, what are we debating about? I mean, in the George Floyd summer of love, maybe I'm wrong about the calendar. It was in 2020 when Trump was president, and it was the worst, arguably the worst BLM violence, I think, in the 21st century. I think that was worse, actually, than Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin. And Trump was president, and he didn't intervene because he was told it'd be better for him. And now in 2025, there's no National Guard. He chickened out on that. He chickens out on all that stuff. He was going to send him to Chicago, going to send him to every major city. Never happened. Even here, you know, they're doing the deportations in Broadview here in Illinois. They brought in like 400 National Guard, and ICE is still getting chased. And they got boxed in by a bunch of different protesters, one with a semi-automatic rifle. There's no law and order. Irina Zarutska under Trump. The crime in New York under Trump. The crime in Chicago under Trump. It's a failure. And we're 10 years in. And so you say, what is it going to take? Because we elected him once, twice.
Can I ask you something, though, just because this is the point I'd like to address when you say Irina Zarutska, and obviously we've covered that, and I think we're in agreement when you look at the judge and you look at the man who was released, I believe, 14 times, right, under the guise of equity, Black Lives Matter, precisely the kinds of policies that only exist because they have been supported by the radical left who run the entire Democrat Party, right? So, yeah, some of that happened under Trump's watch, and I agree. He's definitely far from perfect, and I think he's failed in a lot of ways. But who has been orchestrating it? Because Trump hasn't done enough to fight. I mean, happened under Trump too. Huge mistakes. Fauci, awful. But I certainly think that 20 million illegal aliens in 4 years is worse than a reduction of 90-something%. I certainly think that the people who orchestrated Black Lives Matter and the people who ran those cities and the people who have blocked ICE from doing anything is worse than the guy sending in ICE with any effort at all.
But let's talk about even that. Why do we get all these people from Venezuela? Because Trump hired John Bolton to destroy Venezuela's economy, and then...
I love Donald Trump as much as the next guy, so everything I'm saying really is just constructive criticism. But Nick is absolutely cooking here. Seeing videos of these random, dumb NPCs running around, giving ICE a hard time, protesting in front of their buildings, throwing smoke grenades at them? Like, how are these people allowed to do this and not crushed by the government for clearly doing illegal action? Because all it really does is show us that Trump has no power in controlling these animals and letting them do whatever they want within these major cities. And it's not what I voted for either.
On his last day in office, gave Venezuela temporary protected status. That was one of his last acts as president, and that means they can't be deported. And then you got 6 million Venezuelans in an exodus, and how many of them ended up here? And by the way, Trump ran in 2016 saying, we're going to build the wall and we're going to solve immigration. It didn't happen. There's no wall. He didn't solve it. What he did was executive orders, which Biden immediately overturned when he took power and then brought in 10 million. Okay, so Trump gets elected again. What does Trump do? You're right. He did secure the border. That's true. But we're 10 million deep. That's a little too late. He promised mass deportations. We've had maybe 300,000 deportations this year. Is that going to go up during the midterm elections? Is that going to go up when everybody's running in the primary in 27? I don't see it happening. And either way, it hasn't happened. So this is my frustration where I'm like, I was with you in the first term. As in the first term, when I was in college, I was like, yeah, like vote for Trump, never coming down. If he falls short, we'll go on Twitter and tell him to try better. But 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, Republicans have called for our vote all these times, and things are not getting better, like, at all. And that's sort of the frustration where I start to say, let's turn the table around. And I'm not hopscotching over the voters. I want all the right-wing voters. What I want to hopscotch is the donors. I want to hopscotch the party, which is the RNC, which is, Little Tech, Silicon Valley, which is the Israel lobby, which is Wall Street, because they're driving this stuff. Like, the reason that Trump is not really what he delivers, or what he promises, is because, if you were to deport all these illegal aliens, it's going to be bad for big agriculture, Wall Street, inflation might tick up. And so
Marjorie
that's
Taylor
what I
Greene's
really
construction company.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. And that's why I want to bypass.
Okay, so bypass. So, and nobody is saying that President Trump is perfect. And I'm not a micro-political guy, a cultural guy, largely. And I think there's been a major shift culturally. I mean, half of all gay characters are going to be going away, and GLAAD is lamenting that. I don't know how much more happy I can get. I think that the replatforming is a big thing. Right? I mean, as someone who's been also debanked, demonetized through PayPal, Shopify, all that, very similar to you. The fact that you're able to sit here now and have this conversation and migrating the world's biggest conservative right-leaning now.
Steven is absolutely right about this one, and it's one of the undeniable best things about Trump. Censorship was getting real bad under Biden, so when Trump came back into office, having someone like Nick Fuentes even back on YouTube is such a major W. Think about it, how many conservative figures were banned on Twitter before Elon bought it? And the reason why Elon bought it is to allow conservatives to once again be able to talk freely, which would then directly lead into Trump coming back into office. Because once you bring logic and reason back into the public square, people will start to vote conservative.
Nationalist YouTube channel over to Rumble so that you're able to do that. That's a win, right? And you could look at that like a light switch. Deplatformed, including the president himself, replatformed. To me, that's probably the biggest thing. The fact that you are able to sit here and talk when you weren't.
But I got replatformed under Biden. I got my Twitter account back in May 24. Musk bought Twitter in 2022. Right. And Rumble really started to grow after Trump got banned in 21. That's when all the little tech money jumped in because they said, we're going to do True Social, Trump Media Group, Rumble, these things. So, now that Trump is back in office, there's might be more censorship. Like, you have people
But Elon Musk put you back specifically. He bought that to balance the powers that be. I mean, there was a point in time.
But it wasn't Trump.
But that's the reason for it, right? There's no world in which you're replatformed unless Donald Trump is running again and someone like Elon Musk sees an already existing populist movement. That is important. And right now, this will actually be clips on YouTube. That could never have happened. I mean, I was literally deplatformed for having Carrie Lake on in a midterm. That's why we couldn't stream the elections. So to say that, well, that's because of Biden, are you giving Biden credit for Elon Musk buying X and bringing you back? Because I think that you got to give some credit here if you want to build a coalition.
No, I'm not giving Biden credit. All I'm saying is you attribute that to Trump or for Republicans being in power. All I'm saying is one's got nothing to do with the other. And actually, it was a response. Musk buying Twitter was a reaction to the overreach of the Democrats because they banned the president from Twitter. And I would add to that also, censorship is a big problem. I don't think we're in the clear with Rumble or Twitter. There's going to be a lot of regulatory. Either. Yeah, and what is Trump doing to solidify this free speech beachhead that you have built, that Elon has built? Nothing. Was that in the big, beautiful bill? Is the FCC getting on top of that? They flirted with doing that in 2020 when they said they were going to do section, what is it, 270 or 280
section
or whatever?
230.
They talked about doing that. They never did it. And so that's my problem where, and I'm with you, like,
well, no, can I just pause that? Because that's kind of in my realm of expertise, because this is something where I've been here this entire time.
All right, so with that perspective, I definitely understand what Nick is saying. Trump needs to make some kind of permanent law that would stop companies and massive corporations and politicians from censoring people off the internet because they don't like what they're saying. I would also say that this isn't necessarily Trump's fault, but more so a problem within the system of our country and in the way we handle democracy. It is pretty crazy to think about that every 4 years there's a president that can completely undo everything the prior administration had done. It is pretty crazy to think about that in 2020, Joe Biden and his administration put America in a body bag with all the damage they've done to our country, and then Donald Trump comes in and has to fix all of that, and the idea that he has to fix 4 years worth of damage in 1 year is kind of crazy if we're being honest here. At the same time, that doesn't excuse Trump from not keeping his promises as well. We gotta criticize him where we can.
That is something that I've lived through, and I think you're maybe discounting how bad it can get. And 230 is important, right? I've issued a prescription on how to fix that. And yeah, I'm disappointed that there hasn't been something fully solidified. But I would say there's a reason you're back. There's a reason that people are not afraid to speak out. And people like Trump, people who are more populist, the populists who exist in the right, they listen to their base. And I think it's good that you're pushing him. But what would be enough? In other words, would there be a threshold enough so that you don't just sort of, elope with the Ro Khannas and the Bernie bros of the world?
It's not about eloping, and I would say, what does enough look like? I would know it when I saw it. It would be not like bombing Iran is like a punchline for what Israel wants. That's pretty bad. I would say that not mass deporting people. You don't need to deport 10 million in 1 year, but 1 million per year. And how about anything, and literally anything on free speech? Ron DeSantis had some legislation, and Texas had some legislation about free speech. Could we get something like that, regulatory or legislative? Mm-hmm. I just look across the board, and maybe this addresses the heart of the matter. I sort of look at Trump and I say, I see what you have done for them. Can you bless us in the same way? Because they will move heaven and earth to lower the corporate tax rate. They will move heaven and earth to give $1 trillion for AI, and they will give Saudi Arabia, non-NATO major defense ally. They'll give Qatar security guarantee. They'll bomb Iran for Israel. They'll bomb Yemen for Israel. What will you do for us? A middle-class tax cut? Will you give us law and order, National Guard, mass deportation? How about pick one, something? So, maybe we just differ in approach, because I think you share these frustrations, but you're saying, let's work with them, let's not burn it all down. And you look at me as someone that's saying, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I get where you're coming from, but
is that a wrong assessment? And first off, I do want to correct, because it does matter. 2 million are gone. A lot of people self-deported, which to me is like a magic trick.
No.
Yep, 2 million are gone, and
that's fake.
And a 94%. Okay, well, I'll make sure the references are available. And if people disagree, they can check that out. But there's a lot of self-deportation going on. Also, a 93 to 99% reduction. So if 1 million, 2 million are gone, I would argue the number is 2 million, and you reduce it, I don't think that's marginal, and I think that's probably the biggest issue if you want to preserve a country. Is it enough? Is it ideal? No, but it's better than another 15 million, and the people who brought in 15 million are the people you are suggesting to be part of a coalition after it's burned down.
Maybe the area of disagreement is there are a lot of people in our right-wing coalition who are kind of part of the problem. I would say there are, for example, when Trump bombed Iran, you had 70% of Republicans supporting that. That's a load of crap. Yeah. And you have a lot of Republicans.
I'm okay with the Iran
I know you are, and I've heard your argument. We could have that one out, but I think that's a huge problem. And I think that there's a lot of people that, they're going to vote for Trump literally no matter what. And what that does is it creates moral hazard, because then Republicans know that they can come in, they can screw us forever. And I guess the question is, for me, My prescription is like, I want results now. If you don't give them to us, we don't care. We will burn it down. And I'm being the unreasonable person in the room. I feel like you, because you're being reasonable, you are allowing the establishment to get away with everything.
All right, so I get what Nick is saying, and I don't even necessarily disagree with him. I guess he's looking at a lot of these problems from his perspective, which is totally fair. But even the Asmongold's of the world and a lot of his audience, they didn't really care that we were bombing Iran. You know, I was watching his videos and a lot of people seem to actually be behind it. It really just comes down to perspective at the end of the day. But Nick is right about a lot of these points, and I do feel him for sure. Because at the same time, I don't want to see our country go into another foreign war. Like, I'm good off that, bro. Can we please focus on our own citizens? Is that too much to ask for? And there's certainly a lot of bad actors within the conservative party as well, who, you know, may or may not be funded by a foreign entity. Who knows, right? Who are also peddling a lot of these points that are anti-America first. And America first, once again, doesn't necessarily mean Nick's movement, but the idea of putting America first above everything else. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. This interview with Steven Crowder, one of Nick's best interviews, because both sides were providing great points that I think a lot of us could agree with.